Bill, in your experience as gold, what it has done over the last 20 years, how many times have they thrown massive amounts of paper money at it, paper gold, to knock the price down? If they didn't do that, where do you think gold would be?
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And today, a show I think you're really going to enjoy. Silver Bill Murphy coming back, along with another guest you've seen once on the show, Joe Grande, who's a little bit more behind the scenes, but good friend of Bill, and fortunate to catch up with both of them and have a great conversation at this particular point in time, which I think you will enjoy. And real quick, one note before we get started, especially with everything that's going on out there, I know a lot of people are concerned. And I don't know, first of all, before mentioning today's sponsor, perhaps I really just do send warm energy out there to everyone. I know it's a challenging time. A lot of people are on edge, and we're all not sure how things are going to play out. So sending best wishes to everyone out there. I do hope you are well. And for anyone who is interested and is seeing what's happening and does want to purchase gold and silver, or if for some reason you do want to sell gold or silver, any of your precious metals needs, again, Andy Sheckman of Miles Franklin, who comes on every Saturday, is one of the sponsors to the show. And if you have any questions or need information about any gold or silver products, Arcadia at milesfranklin.com is where you can get answers with no pressure to any of that. With that said, here's today's show. Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and fortunate to bring you a hot roundtable today because you see on one side of the ring is Silver Bill Murphy up there, legend of the silver industry, in my opinion. And down there, someone that many of you are getting to know. He's more behind the scenes, but a great man in this battle against the evil banks and governments. Is Joe Blue Horseshoe Grande, who's making his second appearance on the show. Joe, I see you got a nice GATA poster in the background there. Looks pretty sharp.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Had it for a long time.
welcome back on in. And Silver Bill Murphy, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Good to be on with my good friend Joe. It's fun.
Yeah,
Great.
and I mean, maybe this is, I guess this will be a little redundant. I've done it before, but I actually, I had a, Bill and you and I, we had a critic somewhere, if you can believe that. And someone was saying, Bill talked about for years how when silver goes through $21 to watch out, which is exactly what happened. I guess he thought like silver was supposed to go straight to 50 then, which sometimes it's mind-boggling, but I don't know. I think it's pretty amazing that you said years in advance, watch out when silver goes through 21, shot straight up to 29, came back down. But one of the more impressive financial calls that I've seen in my career. And actually, Joe, maybe you can give me your thoughts, as we won't make Bill brag about the great things he's done. We'll say it for him, and he's not putting us up to this. But Joe, would people be wise to listen to the expert scholars like Ben Bernanke, who couldn't see subprime even as it was unfolding, or someone like Bill, who's actually told the truth and given investors a head start of preparation here?
Well, what I like to do is just start out with to answer your question, just state a couple simple facts. Since 2008, worldwide debt has gone from $140 trillion to $280 trillion. In the last year, somewhere around 2/3 of the money our government has spent has been created out of thin air. Okay, so the people listening have to ask themselves, is this sustainable? Is this something can go on indefinitely? Most likely, most of the people listening have the common sense, and that's the reason why they're listening, to know there's something wrong here. So then you have to say, well, how do you protect yourself? In history, it's always been protecting yourself through gold and silver. And you can make the case, well, Joe, you've been saying that. Bill Murphy's been saying that for 20 years. And, you guys, you can make a case you've been wrong. Well, you can make a case you've been wrong, but you can make a case we've been extremely right. And, the first thing I will say is gold started, somewhere around 250 around 2000, and we're about 1800, 1900 right now.
That's what I was wondering, and apologize for interrupting, but perhaps maybe you can explain this. When someone says that you said that's for 20 years and you're wrong, is my chart broken? Or I think if someone invested in, so that's 300 to, so that's like a 6 or 7 bagger. On what basis would someone say that you were wrong?
I think it's difficult to make the case we were wrong, but what I really want Bill to do is expand on this and show us, Bill, in your experience as gold, what it has done over the last 20 years, how many times have they thrown massive amounts of paper money at it, paper gold, to knock the price down? If they didn't do that, where do you think gold would be? And how come they do it with gold and really no other investment out there?
You just gave me an hour's conversation there, Joe. So thanks. It's great to hear what you have to say, and I hope people pay attention to you more so than me even. And thanks for being with us all this time. All I can say is it's just stunning that the gold and silver markets are rigged the way they are, and nobody says a thing, but very few people in our camp out there. The media won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Because of my colleague, Chris Powell said, they'd rather expose our nuclear secrets than what they're doing in the gold market and silver market to suppress the prices and so on. And it has to do with the big banks, the billion banks, the BIS, different government central banks and so on. And it's really remarkable. And nothing is more remarkable than right today. You mentioned when silver got to 21, it would soar, and it did, but it came. I never dreamed that they could take it back down all the way to 22. And these last 5 months have been the most disgusting markets for gold and silver I've ever seen in those 20 years that Joe's talking about. As Joe mentioned about the debt and the money created, never before in history have the silver and gold markets been more bullish than they are right now. And as horrible as the market action is at the moment, I think it's the best investment opportunity in all those 20 years I've been in it, because what Joe's been talking about, it really taking off, it's coming. What I'm hoping for, and for my 2 cents, is that we're in an end game right now. The past months, and especially the last week, and even in particular, it's the most absurd thing in the history of the gold market. With all, by addition to what Joe said, you've got all the commotion in Washington. You've got the Democrats unexpectedly, wasn't in the market, it was 50-50, taking over Congress. All this spending is coming, and gold and silver keep going down. Or not going up. We had one thing at the beginning of the year, and the raids day after day after day, straight down this morning, straight down. It's happened the last 4 to 5 days for no reason. The dollar today is lower. Interest rates now all of a sudden are taking off because due to inflation concerns. So what inflation concerns? Well, why is gold going down if there's inflation concerns? That's not what happened in 1980, for example, when Paul Volcker said the biggest mistake that he made was not rigging the gold price, because gold going up is bad for the general markets, gold going down is good. So that's what we're dealing now. And what I think, and then I'll turn it back over to Joe, and I'm hoping for, is that we're in an end game scenario. I've mentioned the last couple of days where the bad guys are making this so bad, this gold cartel, that they want people to get out of gold, out of futures, out of their gold investments so they can cover their short positions, because we're in an end game which they're not going to be able to stop it, because they don't have the physical gold and silver anymore to prevent it from happening. It's lasted longer than I thought, but I do think the end game scenario is possibly here. We won't know. You don't know right away, because after doing it all these years, it's not going to disappear in a day. But I think that's in process. It may not be. But if it is, when this goes, because they're going to be forced to retreat, and Joe's going to be right, these prices of gold and silver are the cheapest assets in the world, and they're going to go bonkers.
And Joe, before I let you comment on that, just I'm getting thrown off my game here. It maybe my math isn't good. Did go to public school and then Wharton, which is not really the ideal way to get common sense education. But at least as far as I can see, here's the Dow Jones. So we look back. There's March of 2010, 11,000, and today it's a nice federally reserved hyperinflated 31,000. So let's call that a 3-bagger. And again, here's gold at 300 today at 1841. So six baggers. So I think, I mean, I know Warren Buffett doesn't invest in gold stoppers or door stoppers, so it's not cool, but I don't know, six seems bigger than three. And then one last one for you to comment on. I did pull up the chart. Here is silver going through 21 and it shot up. So if you want to talk about how Bill Murphy was right on my show, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Somewhere around 2008, 2009, I was at the New York Gold Show and Jeff Christian was speaking.
Oh boy.
And at the time, he spoke in front of a large audience and they opened up the mic for questions. And I was the first one up. And he basically made the argument that gold, investing in gold is just a waste of your money. Great speaker to have at a gold show. Whoever planned that, they didn't do a real good job. And, so people like them have been right because they've been able to hold the price down of paper gold and paper silver. Bill, just tell us, why can't they do that, for another year, 5 years, 10 years? Why can't they do that, Bill? Explain to everybody. And after you do that, I want to give a few thoughts on the best way to proceed as an investor, in my opinion.
Well, basically, back to what I mentioned, Joe, it has to do with the physical market. They've attacked year after year, and they've retreated. People say, well, what are you talking about? Look what as Chris has pointed out, what the price of gold has done, and silver, I think when we started was 350 or 4. Even as pitiful as price as it is today, it's still going up, as Chris pointed out, more than the stock market. That this is what they have done, and it's what they continue to do, and they attack and retreat, attack and retreat. And I think this time is their last hurrah because of what I mentioned earlier about the physical market drying up on them. And they just don't have the physical, from my sources and so on, to carry on. They can raid and raid and raid. And this time it's been so obvious with what's going on. I think that we're at, as I call it, the end game, in which they're going to be forced to run for the hills. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like you said, Joe, it could be tomorrow, it could be a lot later than that, and it's going to take off. And what they're trying to do now, and they've succeeded to some degree, to get people out of the market, to make the action so bad that futures traders, spec loans get out of the market. Look at the gold silver shares relative to the stock market. The HUI just broke down again. And today you've got silver having a decent day. First Majestic quality stock, as you mentioned, their company, as you mentioned earlier, it's down. This is what they do to get people to want to get out at a time when the biggest move in history is coming. And there's no doubt in my mind it's there. And it's going to be spectacular because these things are so cheap. So now's the time for people to pay more attention, not less attention, especially with what's going on regarding the fundamentals. They're off the charts bullish. I know you never know it by the price action. And that's exactly what the bad guys, as I call them, this gold cartel wants you to think.
Well,
now, I'm sorry, Chris.
Go ahead, Blue Horseshoe, please.
Right now, you have somewhere between 1.5% of the investable dollars in the U.S. investing in gold and silver related products. It's next to nothing. Normally, the average is somewhere around, I believe, 1.5% to 2%, the last 3-decade average. So right now, the question is, if you invest in gold and silver on the mining shares, is it risky? Well, your listeners have to ask themselves, with what they're doing day after day, just printing money like crazy. Yeah, you make some money in Bitcoin. I'm not saying you can't make money in other places, but do you think if they keep doing what they're doing, do you think it's going to make sense to invest in gold and silver? And then if you do you think it'll make sense to invest in the mining shares? And that's what I like to talk a little bit about, guys, if you would allow me. In 2011, when gold topped out, the HUI, the gold bug index, was at around 650. Right now, like Bill just mentioned, it's sitting at 300, and gold is not far from its all-time high. So if you're an investor and you see the craziness out there and you want to protect yourself and you want a little leverage, well, what's a better place to invest than the gold and silver mining shares? That's the way I look at it. You could say, okay, well, Joe, that could be really, really risky. These gold exploration stocks, they can, they trade for pennies and you can lose all your money overnight. I agree. But we're at the point now where the good mining companies are trading so cheaply that if you buy them and gold and silver does nothing, you're going to make money. Gold and silver doesn't have to do anything, and you're going to make money. If gold and silver does anything like what the three of us think, then you know what? You are going to be, watching returns, experiencing returns that are amazing, that are absolutely positively amazing. So all you have to do is pick good companies and be patient. The total market cap right now of the major mining companies and royalty companies is $300 billion. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Just the cash that Apple holds, they could buy the index multiple times over. So, this is something, if you think that there's a good chance things are going to get ugly moving forward, and you want to protect yourself and you want to have some leverage, I would say a great place to be is some of these top-notch mining shares. And after getting your thoughts, I wouldn't mind if I hope you guys don't mind if I give your listeners a few of my thoughts on some of them.
Well,
Joe, go ahead.
And Bill?
Well, I couldn't agree with Joe more. Of course, I'm a big fan of the physical stuff too, but Joe is so right. These shares are ridiculous. What? Tesla's got twice as much as, that's all. The market cap is twice as big as the gold shares, or 3 times maybe. It's absolutely astounding. And these shares, when this thing goes, as this end game plays out, whether it's really soon or a little bit later, are going to go take off. They're the bad guys, again, as I call them, doing all they can to get people out, and people are getting naturally discouraged. You wake up every day, NASDAQ going to all-time high, Bitcoin going nuts. Look at my gold, silver shares. It's like, and it's causing people to get out when they should be paying more attention, as Joe's saying. And I couldn't agree more that they're going to go, the returns will be phenomenal in the years ahead. And I'm hoping we're approaching that point where it really kicks off. Again, the HUI, half of what it was years ago, is ridiculous. And it shows you how cheap they are.
And what everyone has.
Or Joe, just before we get to those stocks, actually something Bill mentioned. Let's pull up the Tesla board. I have a formal correction and apology to make on the show. I had been saying that Tesla was up 17x since, here's September of 2019. We see about 48 bucks. It's right around when the Fed started their swap lines, which I'm sure had no correlation with the Tesla chart going vertical right when it did. Although, I guess I gotta do a little more homework, be more diligent. I'd been saying it was a 17 bagger, but of course it's up 46 bucks today. So add a bag on, maybe I'm a day late. I get 19-ish bagger right now. And again, here we look at Bitcoin, which let's call it 35,000 today, has come down quite a bit. I believe the after it hit 20,000 went down to about 3,000. So 12 to 15 bagger, depending on what the price of Bitcoin is when you look at it. Yet when you talk about silver, like going to $50 or 75, they're like, whoa, okay, conspiracy boy, let's not get out of check here. And I just keep thinking how we're in this environment where this is normal. People just think, oh, well, it's Tesla. It's got to go up 20% per day. But forget if silver went up 19x, but just, isn't that a little weird where it's like when it's like every other asset should be skyrocketing, stock market at all-time highs, yet we talk about gold or silver. And it's, so what do you think about that, Joe?
I agree with you 100%. So as an investor, in this sector, I look at it 2 ways. I look at it as I can invest in these companies right now, good, solid companies, and no matter what, where gold and silver are, I am going to make money. I don't have to take a lot of risk. I just have to be patient. And then I take a step back and I look at it and I say, okay, what's my upside here? Well, we have a total market cap of the entire, mining, gold and silver mining industry of about $300 billion. You can't even have anyone that manages major money buy in the sector, unless you're like you buy, a 0.5% of Barrick, like Berkshire Hathaway did. So they can't even buy a lot of these companies. They're not big enough. When they start buying them, the pricing is going to go crazy. It's going to do a Tesla and a Bitcoin. But in the meantime, you can buy these. And if it makes sense to you that the way they're printing money, that gold and silver are going to do well, the way they've held the pricing of gold and silver down, and the way GATA has documented it for the last 20 years, at some point in time, it's going to have to play catch up. When it plays catch up, you know what? These good investments that you're making, that you're going to make money no matter what, some of them are going to go crazy. Some of them are going to do fantastic. It's going to be a generational thing to watch. Now, let me say to your listeners, I'm very biased. I am not an investment professional. I'm a self-employed person who have made this a second business for myself. So please do your own diligence. But I've done mine, and I'm going to give you a few examples now. Bill brought up earlier First Majestic, one of the companies that has supported you, Chris. First Majestic, all-in sustaining cost is $11.55 an ounce. So in 2021, if we have $25 silver, we're going to have $316 million free cash flow. So that's just where silver is right now. We got $316 million cash flow. If we get silver up to $35 next year, free cash flow goes over $500 million. That's at $35 silver. Starts throwing some of the bigger numbers out there. What is First Majestic going to do? Now, when you're looking at First Majestic, we're not looking at some risky exploration company. We're looking at something that's very, very stable. You can own this company and you can sleep at night, at least I can. And the other thing you got to look at is over 20% of the shares of First Majestic are short. So we're, at some point in time, if silver does what we think it's going to do, it's going to get a real nice kicker there. A real nice kicker. So, you have a company that you can invest in, you have some stability, but you got fantastic upside also.
Yeah, Joe, actually, I appreciate you brought up First Majestic. Perfect example for today. We're recording here Tuesday morning. And as I was looking at stock chart, again, we have silver actually up 2%. Oh, look at that. I got Bill Murphy on video on a day silver is up. All right, Bill, come on. It might be down $2 by the time we finish. But Bill, we got silver up. Let's see the smile there. So anyway, but on the day that you do have silver up, here we see First Majestic down 26 cents, down 2%. I know it's been up a couple bucks the last couple of days, although here's an interesting one, because if we go back to the beginning of 2020, so we see that's not, I guess December. So depending on when you measure it, so here's when silver was 18 bucks. So basically, depending on the day, all right, fine. If you go back to January, but when silver was 18 bucks, First Majestic's at $12.26. Now silver is still $7 higher, and it's about flat. I know a lot of people have been perplexed by that. And Blue Horseshoe, what would you say?
I would say to them, it's impossible to predict timing on so many of these investments. And I'd like to get Bill's, comments on this also when I'm finished. So we've been watching this for the last 20 years. And every time we think we're getting a nice run, they pull it back. So the question is, Bill, are we wrong? Or is there something bigger happening here that can explain to people, okay, this is what's really happening. Don't be demoralized. Just get ready for something bigger at a certain point in time.
Well, for me, I've been a $100 silver guy for years and too early, but there's no doubt in my mind that that's where silver's going. Not zero. The timing of it, as we've talked about, is difficult. And part of getting back to answer the question, I think it's, for me, it's the end game scenario. The bad guys, once again, these big banks, the people that control the stuff, have been pressuring these gold, silver shares and made them so cheap relative to like what you're just talking about, Chris, compared to First Majestic compared to years ago. I mean, you've got to be kidding. But they've done it, and it's discouraged people, discouraged investors to get involved in some of these other markets. Again, you wake up in the morning, NASDAQ record high, and it's fed on itself. But that's why I think it's leading to the end game, in which these things, as Joe's been talking about, when it's going to go, and it's going to go, you can count on it. The timing's very difficult, but it's going to be spectacular. And when the money decides to come into this tiny sector, it won't be able to handle it. And you're going to have even some of these companies maybe that aren't too good or even aren't too stable, even they will go nuts. So if you have a bunch of them, but just by being in the sector, they're going to go up. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying what's happened in the past, and it's been nothing like what's going to happen in the future. So as disgusted as I am, like on a day like today, when I see what's going on in the markets, I couldn't be more excited and more bullish for what's coming. It's time for it to change, and you just have to watch and wait, because we're up against the richest, most powerful people in the world, and I'm hoping that they've decided that it's time for them to make their final play and cover. We don't know that yet at all, and maybe they won't, but that's what I think I'm seeing, because this is so bad, so ridiculous. It's going to be that good, and they've got to get out.
Yeah, and what would you say to folks? I get these messages all the time. I know you guys both get them too, where, all right, silver's never going to go up. It's manipulated. Why would I bother? I understand the emotion behind that. We've all felt it. But Joe, what would you say to folks who are feeling that way today?
I have to say that it's impossible to time the market. You look at Tesla. How many brilliant people have told us what a bad investment Tesla is, and it continues to go up? How many people have predicted what would happen in Bitcoin properly? This stuff, it's impossible to predict. It really is. So me as an investor, I can tell you the only way, the way I think. I looked at everything that's happening out there, and I'm saying this is crazy. I run a small business, and my business for the year from last year, from 2019 to 20, I was down 32% for the year. And now the government wants to give me more money instead of just letting me open my business up properly with COVID. They just want to give me more money. So what are they telling me? They're telling me, don't worry about making money. We'll just give you money. I mean, is that any way to run an economy? It's crazy. And then you take that. That's not one, small little area. That's now the world. So, you can make the case that, gold and silver, hasn't done what a lot of us have thought it would do, in the time frame we said. But I don't think you can make the case that all the reasoning we've given you for it to go crazy hasn't happened. It's happened, and it's getting crazier. It's getting crazier. So the question is, unlike the powers that be being able to control other investments, they can't control gold and silver because indefinitely, because there's a limited amount. And that's where you guys have done such an incredible job of educating people. Now, it doesn't mean that, it's going to end tomorrow. I thought it was going to end a few times, and I've been wrong. But the one thing I can tell you is I know that everything I put in gold and silver over the long term, I've done just fine physically. I know the mining shares, I don't buy these super risky companies that you're rolling the dice. I buy good companies like First Majestic, and then I'm just patient. So you know what? The biggest problem, if you do it properly, is just being patient. If gold and silver do not go crazy like we think they may, you're still going to be fine. You're not going to be devastated. You're not going to be devastated. It's not easy to time that stuff. And as Jesse Livermore said, men who could be right and sit tight are very uncommon. It's not easy. It's not easy. You just have to be patient. You just have to be patient. And I know at times, Chris has made fun of me in the past. In March, when I was having a real bad day, I ate too many gummy bears, over my frustrations.
What are you talking about? Made fun of you? I was the one calling to make sure you weren't raiding the candy rack. I mean, that was a genuine concern, bro.
Yeah. So at times it's not easy, but I will tell you that I do think the payback is going to be good, and it could turn out to be literally life-changing. And that's what I feel it's going to be. I feel it's going to be latter. I feel it's going to be life-changing.
Joe, if I may, what other stocks do you like?
Well, the one thing I will say is like right now, why get too risky? There's no need to. There's two other stocks I want to talk about. One is Integra Resources on the New York Stock Exchange, symbol ITRG. ITRG, Integra Resources on the New York Stock Exchange. So why? I pulled something out of their little corporate presentation. It's a great company. The guy that runs the company, the people that run the company have already done it once, and they sold it to Eldorado Gold. So they have a great track record. And the gentleman who's the president and CEO of the company has done it multiple times in different companies. So he's very, very experienced. I just want to read 5 or 6 lines out of their corporate presentation about the company. They list different things to narrow down, what's a truly great investment. The first thing is all pre-production projects with gold and silver resource estimate globally. And then they say if you remove projects without a valid economic study since 2015, then you remove projects with less than 50% precious metals. Then you remove projects that are going to mine less than 100,000 ounces of gold a year. And then you remove projects with less than 10 years mine life. A few more things, guys. Remove projects in bad parts of the world. Remove projects owned by one of the big guys already, and remove projects of really large companies. There's only 4 projects left. One of them is Integra Resources. It's the first company, that I'm talking about. And the second one is Sabina Gold and Silver. The last time I was on with Chris, I spoke about that company. Sabina Gold and Silver, the symbol is SBB.T, trades in Canada. It's a project that is permitted. It has a resource of over 7 million ounces. It's near construction. It has great grades. They have an updated feasibility study coming out, in the very near future. They're estimating to be producing gold 300 ounces a year at $534 an ounce was their initial feasibility study. So, right now with gold at 1,800, 1,900, you got a company that's going to be able to mine gold $300,000 and 300,000 ounces a year in Canada, permitted, great management. All you have to do is just buy it and forget about it. There's no need to do crazy things. It's going to make money with gold and silver at the pricing that it's at right now. If things go crazy, if some good things happen where you get a bidding war in the majors are going to need to buy companies. Their inventories is depleting dramatically. It takes a decade to permit and to get a gold mine built. So gold has been depressed for so long. The infrastructure of the gold mining industry has been depleted. So they're going to have to rebuild that. And when right now they're very cash flow positive. If gold and silver keeps doing what it's doing, these guys are going to go on a buying spree. The big guys, the majors, are going to go on a buying spree. And companies like Integra Resources and Sabina, they're going to be just great companies to own. So, for the listeners that have been demoralized, hang in there. All the work that GATA has done and Chris Marcus and the people like him have done have showed that, gold and silver, there's a true shortage of them. And the only reason why they're able to push them back periodically is by selling paper gold. Most people don't understand that. Bill, he lives it every day. Chris lives it every day. People that read them and listen to them understand that. But most of the world doesn't. So when this market starts to move, people that are listening to this show or followers of these guys are going to be so far ahead of the average investor that you're going to be rewarded incredibly. You don't have to buy these risky exploration stocks and say, okay, I want to take, $10,000 and I want to turn it into 2 million. I want 100 back. You don't need to do that. Just buy good, solid companies. If you don't know enough about it, just, buy a good mining stock fund like the Tocqueville Gold Fund. I invest for my mother for her retirement. I don't want her in the things I'm in because I'm more risky. I'm younger, so I put my mother in the Tocqueville Gold Fund that Sprott bought out, It's a great fund with great companies. And over the last 5 or 6 years, my mother's done very, very well. And she makes sure that I give her updates, making sure her son Joe's taking care of her money, and she's very happy with the performance.
Bill, are you able to comment on that, or are you just kind of like touched right now and speechless? Or
I'm touched, and good for Joe and his mom. But I couldn't agree more. Joe's got it nailed. He's absolutely correct. Everybody's got different investment philosophies, but basically, getting a group of these, some of these producers or these younger companies, which are really, some of them are just off the charts cheap. Joe's right. They're going to be bought out, and as the sector expands and once gold and silver prices take off. So for me, again, it's the most bullish picture I've ever seen for gold and silver. At the same time, because of what this cartel is doing, it's the most aggravating and frustrating, and it's horrifying watching what they do every day. But it's going to end, and when it ends, it will be spectacular, like Joe's talking about.
Well, I sure think so. And Joe, I appreciate your kind words about the show. And I'd like to add real quick that I know with things going on in the world today, if you'd like to make sure you can stay posted for what we're sharing here, right on arcadiaeconomics.com, you can get these delivered straight to your inbox each day. So no matter what happens in the world, you can still stay miles ahead of Wall Street. And fellas, any parting words before we wrap up today? How about you take it first there, Silver Bill?
No, it's just, I think, again, a big picture, it's never been a more bullish situation. And as Joe said, you got to have patience and, and investing in some of these shares and having physical gold and silver too. I mean, it's just going to be spectacular. It just got to get through this temporary aggravation.
And Professor Horseshoe?
I just end with a couple things. Number one, if you want to get into some of the more riskier stocks, like right now, one of the greatest, they're talking about Great Bear Resources being one of the greatest gold finds in the last, 20, 30 years. I'm in that, but I didn't get in immediately. I wasn't that smart, but after it started doing real well, I'm like, okay, let me jump in now. And that's what I did. So I missed the first move, no big deal. So, don't look to be perfect. Just if you do this right, we are so early in the move that it's going to be incredible. And I just, want to say to you guys, I have a day business, and to watch, you, Chris, and to read you, Bill, I've been reading you for 20 years now in the cafe. It's just a nice, easy way to find out what's going on out there. And the nice thing is with me, I don't got to live it constantly. So on a bad day, I can keep myself busy with business. But I really appreciate what both you guys do. And you've really helped educate me immensely, especially, you, Bill, for so long, and your partner at GATA, Chris Powell, an amazing gentleman. Thank you both very much.
Thanks for the kind words, Joe. You're the best. Chris, you're the best too.
Well, perhaps the best website is the GATA site, which, by the way, I might like to add that if anyone is sitting here and appreciates that Bill told them years in advance what would happen in silver, you can support the great things they're doing. You can get some of the emails that they send out with Chris Powell. I love Chris sent out. I got to send him a thank you card for this one. I'd like to think I would have caught it, but discussing with one of my guests, I just recorded another episode before we started here, the irony of Deutsche Bank will pay nearly 125 million to avoid prosecution on charges for bribery. I'm thinking, wait a second. They paid a bribe to avoid bribery charges. I mean, you couldn't make this up. Unfortunately, what you can do is have some sanity in your life. You can support GATA. Or Bill, could you let them know a little bit about your great website, the Metropole Cafe, that the experts like Horseshoe over there reads every day, and what they can get there?
Well, I've been doing it for 22, 23 years now. People can sign up for a 2-week free trial if they want to see if it's worth it. And to try to explain what's going on in the gold, silver markets and markets in general, how it affects it. And again, I think as Joe has been talking about here, we have something that is really going to be spectacular. And to understand people say, well, it's rigged, I'm not going to be in it. No, 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 no. You got to understand, when you understand it's rigged and how artificially suppressed the prices are, that's why it's going to explode and go berserk, because of what these people have done. So to understand that, while short-term watching, doing what they do is a bit, as I said, aggravating, to put it mildly. You know what's coming, what Joe's been talking about, and you got to be on board to make the money.
And Bill, I have to tell you, it did make me chuckle the other day when I got the headline. January 7th, just frustrating. Sums up silver perfectly. Although at least this guy's pretty darn handsome over there. And Horseshoe, is there a way that people can follow what you're doing out there, or do they just need to go to arcadiaeconomics.com, sign up for that list, and then that way they'll know when you're on the show again? Or how do people stay posted?
Basically, Chris, I just do this as a second business. I'm not selling anything. So whenever you invite me back, I will be back. I have an absolute wonderful time doing this. It's really fantastic to do. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I sure appreciate that, gentlemen. It's been quite a pleasure getting to share this journey with both of you. So we'll look forward to doing this again soon. And folks at home, in case you did not catch the latest update about what's going on in the physical silver and gold markets with Andy Schechtman of Miles Franklin, well, that is coming your way now.